Hi everyone, and welcome to today's second episode in our three-part talent branding webinar series. Today we're going to be focusing on maintaining a strong talent brand when engaging with talent. Just to let you know that we will be recording the session, so there's no need to take notes along the way. And before we start, there is an area of the webinar where we have some interactive polls, so do get involved in those. And also feel free to ask any questions that you might have along the way in the chat box, and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end. So just to introduce myself, I'm Kelly. I'm the head of talent branding here at Talentful. So I work with a number of really exciting global tech organizations in supporting them and improving their talent brand. So through data and insights, I really help clients gain an understanding of how their brand is perceived in the market and then provide creative solutions to get them noticed. So prior to moving into a branding capacity a couple of years ago, I myself was a tech recruiter, having worked at some really great e-commerce brands like Matches Fashion, Not on the High Street, and Net-a-Porter. And this experience has really equipped me with a solid understanding of the challenges that both companies and recruiters face when hiring talent. And I have a real appreciation for the candidate experience.
Thank you, Kelly. Hi, everyone. My name is Villu, and I'm one of the talent directors here at Talentful, looking after a portfolio of clients and a team of recruiters. I've actually been in talent acquisition for nearly 7 years now, and most of my experience have been working with startups and scaling businesses across the UK and Europe. I've worked with companies across a really wide range of industries, spanning from e-mobility, technology, e-commerce, and even health tech. I started my career as a pretty hands-on recruiter, but for the past 2.5 years, I've been working as a senior advisor to C-suite and founders on talent acquisition best practices and strategies. And now let me give you a brief introduction to Talentful, because we might be new to some of you. So Talentful is a global in-house talent consultancy, and we are on a mission to accelerate the growth of our clients through our very unique embedded talent acquisition model. We are actually a global company of more than 100 recruiters that are based in London, Berlin, San Francisco, and actually most recently Austin and Boston. We work with a range of tech businesses through seed stage to scale ups and all the way through household names such as like Google and even King. Our sweet spot really is building businesses through end-to-end recruitment delivery, but most recently, we've just launched a new talent brand services.
Before moving into the agenda today, we just thought it would be best to explain what talent branding is and how it differs from employer branding. So talent branding, as per the name, focuses on talent rather than the employer. So it starts with the comprehensive research and insight gathering phase and assessing what target talent really wants to see from a company's talent brand, and then matching that to opportunities to amplify that company's identity and core values. So this research really requires sophisticated surveying of both internal and external audiences that will provide really powerful insights. And finally, commitment to the talent branding process is essential for any business who's looking to differentiate their talent brand from their competitors. So talent branding, as we see it, is a much needed evolution of what's more commonly known as employer branding.
So before going into even more detail, let's have a look at the agenda and what we'll be covering today. So what we're hoping is that this webinar will teach you how to engage with your talent pool in a remote first world, and why candidate experience is so closely linked with talent branding. We'll share some tips around how to engage your silver medalist and understand their key role in communicating your talent brand. And as always, we'll finish our webinar with some practical examples on how best to measure the success of your talent brand through the engagement process. So I think we can all agree that getting your talent brand in front of your talent community is more important in this new reality than ever before. I think it's mainly because people are spending considerably more time online, and actually a huge part of our social and work lives have now moved to online as well. There's some recent research that suggests that social media and online content consumption has gone up by 40 to 60%, which is a huge jump. And in addition to this, the majority of job seekers regularly use social media for their job search, so companies should really stay on top of the content that they're pushing out on these channels. Another significant change of the past 6 months is that job seekers do not have the opportunity to test the water by meeting prospective employers face to face. So candidates would then naturally need to turn to online sources to learn as much about brands as possible. So I think the bottom line here really is that the way we engage with our candidate pool through Talent Brand and social media has become a lot more important than before. We should really consider and think about very carefully what our online content tells about our talent brand and whether that is representative of our culture and people. There's actually a number of things I think we could do in a remote first world to stay as close to our talent pool and potential new hires as it is possible. I touched upon the importance of social content, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to share more meaningful content with our community than before. So maybe we should think about updates or stories that really demonstrate our values and what our brand stands for. Working remotely also brings some fundamental changes around developing a candidate pipeline or just hiring in general. So I think we now have a golden opportunity to engage with talent who we never had a chance to reach before. So we can really use this to our advantage, and we can actually start using this to build a more diverse talent pool. I think what's also interesting that it's also much easier to find some time to actively engage with our talent pool and have more meaningful conversations with them. So by spending more time with our community, we will have a much better understanding of what topics they're interested in and what values matter to them. And I think all of this can really add to our talent brand and it can really strengthen our perception in the market.
Before going to the topic further, we're going to kick off with a poll just to demonstrate why a standout candidate experience matters. So we brought you some really interesting stats for today. So as I mentioned before, if you can use the polling function to answer our first question now. So what percentage of talent have rated their candidate experience good or great? Interesting. Okay, so the results there. So majority of you, you see the different results there. Okay, so 57%, 50%, great. Brilliant. Great. So only 50% of talent rated their experience good or great. So given the impact that this part of your candidate journey has on talent that you want to hire, this number is really concerning, and it also means that the other 50% of talent are having a mediocre or even poor candidate experience. So the impact of this is it could take someone from loving and being fully engaged in a brand to potentially declining an offer, putting a really poor review out about the organization. And all in all, if it's not meeting expectations for a candidate, that can really impact your brand. So our next question is, what percentage of job seekers would share their negative experience with a professional network, friends, and family? So if you can cast your votes now. Right, so majority of you said, 69%, which is the right answer. Brilliant. So, yep, 69% of job seekers would share their negative experiences with people that they know. So again, a really huge figure. And I think we've all experienced seeing a negative review on Glassdoor about a company, or we've maybe heard a story from somebody that we know, and it's really changed our view of them, and potentially it stopped us applying for a role or even accepting a role. And in addition, recruiters may also suffer from the looming Glassdoor review that often gets brought up as a concern by candidates. So it can have long-term implications as well. And then our final question is, what percentage of candidates with a positive recruitment experience will be more likely to apply again or refer others to apply? So if you can cast your final votes on this. Right, so let's get back on track. So you'll be pleased to know that the answer is 95% of candidates are likely to apply again and go on to tell others of their positive experience. So what's really worth highlighting here is that this statistic includes candidates that were unsuccessful in getting a job offer, but because they had a positive experience, they'll stay loyal to your brand. And this just goes to show that the power that a great candidate experience has. Not only does it help build up your talent pool for future roles, reducing your time and your cost per hire, it'll also strengthen your brand awareness and support you in becoming an employer of choice. So as you've seen through our quiz, whether a candidate is successful or unsuccessful in a candidate journey almost doesn't matter. It's how their experience was that will impact your talent brand, both positively or negatively. So there's a really big opportunity here, as it can affect unsuccessful talent moving to a loyalty stage, meaning that they're likely to continue to stay engaged with your brand, be open to being considered for future opportunities, and refer others. So somebody who starts in your business as a new starter, just by living the experience that they've been sold, which is super important, they become a brand ambassador or an influencer, in fact. So they go on to spread the word of your company, and they're also more willing to refer others to join. And finally, a silver medalist. So this is someone who just missed the mark on being hired as a more experienced candidate was hired, for example. And by nurturing that relationship, keeping in touch through relevant content, they will automatically form part of an active talent pool for future opportunities. They'll remain engaged, and they'll go on to tell others of their experience. So these are all good news stories that help to support and improve your reputation in the market, and therefore helping you to attract and engage top-tier talents.
So building out and running a high-touch candidate experience can be quite challenging at the best of the times, but now it is a lot more challenging because we need to run everything virtually. Some very important milestones in the candidate journey have gone through a huge transformation overnight, so we're no longer able to conduct in-person interviews, office visits, or just to gain an insight into what it is like to work for a certain employer. The whole interview experience is now virtual, and successful talent brands will need to adapt to these new ways of hiring. The way how we run the interview process remotely will have a very significant impact on the perception of our talent brand. So when thinking about building out a remote interview process, I would suggest starting with the basics. So first things first, do we have the right tools and technology to run interviews remotely? Are we comfortable using the tech? Do we want to run these conversations synchronously? Or shall we do async interviews to accommodate talent that might be based in different time zones? Once we have the right technology, I think we really need to map out the candidate journey. We will clearly need more candidate touch points than before, with very clear and regular communications. We might need to spend more one-to-one time with each candidate to have more in-depth conversations. Remember, there's no opportunity for office visits to check on the culture and the team, so more information we can share with candidates, the better it is. We really need to have candidate packs ready and any additional content to help guide them through the interview process. I think it's really up to you what you actually want to put into these candidate packs. So maybe you want to create some videos with your hiring managers or senior management. You might want to have some photography ready to go. You should really use and leverage your social assets to bring your brand to life. I think once you map out the candidate journey, structure is also a really key component of designing a great candidate experience. We should start with reviewing the workflow, the interview stages, and actually what are those competencies and behaviors that we'd like to assess at every single stage. We should have a very clearly defined structure to each round with well-defined questions and also outcomes that we're looking. We also might want to think about the new reality and any additional skills that we might need to assess in this new world. So this really is the time to get your scorecards ready. Training your team on how to conduct these interviews are also super important. So engaging with a candidate on Zoom for the first time is totally different than if you would do it in real life. So you need to make sure that your hiring managers are very comfortable running these interviews if you do not want to damage your talent brand. And my advice would be to conclude the process with a candidate experience survey to find out how did we do throughout the interview process, and is there anything we could have done any better.
So remember your silver medalists. So why is it so important to engage with your silver medalists? So firstly, this group of talent are already engaged and bought into your brand, but it's also really important to remember that there's a lot of competition out there. You still need to remain at the forefront of their minds. So talent branding is an ongoing job, and if this pool aren't taken care of, they will go stale. So this pool of talent could be your almost qualified group, meaning that they have high potential and would make a great impact in your organization when a suitable opportunity becomes available. If they were overqualified, they might be qualified for a more senior role at your company. So consider succession planning here, Be proactive in getting them introduced to hiring managers and decision makers so relationships can be built ahead of future hiring opportunities. And I think that's as much easier to do in a remote working world, because you don't have to think about the logistics of meeting and that kind of thing. If they continue to feel engaged with your company, they'll remain loyal and they'll go on to spread the word of your brand. And finally, all of this nurturing will be worth its weight in gold when you see your costs and time to hire reduced when you have a role that's a great match for them. The tactics to engage your silver medalists. So where do you start when engaging with this audience? So a really basic foundation step, but highlighting your silver medalists in your ATS system. Make sure that your whole team are aware of this group and that you're regularly discussing them and potential opportunities. I think we can all agree that working remotely can mean it's not as easy to be across everything our team is doing. So make sure this is a discussion point as part of your team meetings. Build email nurture campaigns. So this content needs to be really engaging, relevant, and consistent. And it's a real opportunity for you and your team to think creatively about how to continue the conversation and stay at the forefront of this talent's minds. So remember to invite your silver medalists to anything that you're hosting. So webinars, virtual events, maybe some round tables, because these are all opportunities to keep them engaged and keep the conversation going. Keep it personal. So as I say, working remotely, it's not easy to just grab a coffee with a candidate anymore. So be proactive and still book in virtual coffees so that you can stay connected. And finally, make sure that your silver medalists are on a fast track recruitment process next time you're hiring.
Great. So now that we know what makes a standout candidate experience, I think it's important to have a look how to measure success through feedback. So when it comes to having a great candidate experience, understanding what we've done well and not so well in the candidate journey is critical. I am personally a really big fan of candidate experience surveys because the feedback you can get really helps you to understand what to improve. In my opinion, you should ask every single candidate, so regardless whether they were successful, unsuccessful, and particularly those who chose to drop out of your process or reject an offer, to see how they found the whole candidate journey. That data will be hugely valuable in identifying what needs improving. Another interesting way of getting feedback could be meeting with the new starters within the first couple of weeks. And I think it's a real opportunity for you to dig deeper into their candidate and onboarding experience as well. Another two things that I would suggest measuring would be the offer acceptance rate and capturing rejection regions as well. I think if you're noticing that candidates are rejecting your offers, you really need to get under the skin of that. Are you losing out on these candidates because of the particular reason? Are there any patterns? Are there any data they can share with the rest of the business and action on this feedback? And finally, which might seem to be scary first, but I encourage, and you should encourage, candidates and employees to leave Glassdoor reviews. I think authenticity and honesty will be the key here.
Just as a brief introduction, I'm just going to walk you through what our talent branding formula is at Talentful. So we always start with data, and we're partnering with brand intelligence platform Attest. So we look to run an 8-week in-depth talent brand audit with our clients to really learn what people are saying about them in the market and within their company. And at the end of this discovery phase, we'll produce and you'll receive a detailed report on what makes you stand out and where you can improve. And based on our findings, we'll be able to provide you with data-led informed recommendations of what activity is needed to get your brand noticed and achieve your ultimate goal, which is to attract, engage, and hire top talent. And then finally, our in-house creative studio builds bespoke solutions that help tell your story and highlight your unique culture, values, and vision. So these are a host of activities that Talentful specialize in, and as time moves forward, we'll continue to evolve, develop, and grow these activities. So we really believe that a combination of these products will activate your brand and support in spreading the word of your organization. So our experienced in-house creative studio comprises of a creative director, a producer, and social content executive. And to support with any content creation, we also work with professional journalists who have written for the likes of Wired, Forbes, and BuzzFeed. And in addition, we work with top developers and designers. So we all work together to really bring our partners' brands to life. So if you are interested in finding out more, do check out our website and get in touch.
And then this really concludes our webinar today. So here's a bit of a self-promotion at the end. Kelly and myself will be running the last episode of the series on the 8th of October on remote culture building. So if you enjoyed this week's webinar last week, please do come along on the 8th of October too. And if there's anything else you'd like to talk through or find out more information on, please check out our website. It's talentful.com. Our talent brand offering can also be found under services on our website. And in addition to that, please feel free to connect with Kelly or myself on LinkedIn if you have any other questions that you would like to discuss. So thank you all for staying with us today. Hopefully you can come away from this session with a few ideas that you can implement within your own organizations. And I think it's now over to you guys. So thank you so much for all of the questions that were coming through. I can see a few here. So Kelly, do you maybe want to have a look?
Yeah, we're just going to randomly select. In the interest of time, we'll probably only choose 2 or 3. So actually, Villa, this is a really good question for you because we were talking about this the other day. But have you seen, the question is, have you seen any examples of innovative, so basically something out of the ordinary, remote candidate experiences?
Oh, yes, I think I have a really interesting example for this. So actually, one of the companies I'm working with at the moment called Aula, a higher education startup, I think it's a really great example. So when we went in, we basically just had a massive recruitment drive when we needed to recruit nearly like 100 learning designers within 4 weeks, which seemed really impossible at times. So what we did is we basically built a fully async interview process with which we were able to hire these individuals like literally overnight. We moved to like a 24/7 recruitment process as well. So we had the recruiter working for us who was based in New Zealand, and the rest of the team was based in Europe as well. So this way we were able to move candidates quicker through the funnel as well and give them a much better experience than normal. We also ran an engagement survey at the end, and I was dreadful to find out the results because I wasn't sure how the candidates felt about this whole async nature of the process. But what we found is that they actually felt a lot more comfortable doing everything async, and this way they were able to give a better account of themselves than if it was a real life setting. So I thought that was a very interesting example of like doing things remotely.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that. So the next question is, how would you recommend responding to negative feedback captured? So I guess it depends on how you do it. I think, as you can tell, we're obviously big fans of gaining feedback through surveys, and I know it can seem really daunting, but it's so important and is the only way to really know what you're doing well and what can be improved. So I think it's about consistently doing it, capturing trends, and really acting on them. I think that's the best way to really respond to any negative feedback that's been captured. Additionally, if we're thinking about somebody putting something on Glassdoor, for instance, I think the biggest thing that you have there, because you don't have much control over that, is I would recommend always responding, whether it's positive or negative. Always thank somebody for leaving their review. And I know it's hard, but don't get defensive. If somebody's left a negative review, this is about their experience. So I think it's thanking them for their feedback, empathizing to almost apologize that they've had the experience that they had, and what are the next steps that you're going to do in order to improve your process. I think that's the best way forward in those situations.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think escalation, if there's something in there that's a consistent trend that definitely needs to be escalated, or maybe there's a training glitch in your interview process with stakeholders, I think it's really important that those things get captured and flagged.
Yeah.
So we do one more question, and below this could be for you as well. This is a good question. We'll have a good answer for this. So do you have any suggestions of how to show or explain your remote culture?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that you can do actually. So maybe I can talk through an example of what we did here at Talentful as well. So we actually just recorded our own remote culture video. Then this was really just a way to bring everything and everyone back together, because now we're all spread across in different parts of the country as well. So think, producing these type of content could be really interesting, and sharing it with your audience is also key here. And actually, if you're interested to find a little bit more about remote culture building, that is actually going to be the topic of our next webinar on the 8th of October. So I do encourage everyone to come along and learn a little bit more about that.
Great. I think that's all we have time for. Just conscious it's just gone 11:30, but thank you all so much for joining in today's webinar. And as we said before, do feel free to get in touch if there's anything else that you'd like to continue discussing. Thank you so much.
Everyone. Take care. Bye.